Hey everyone, welcome to this audio version of the cartoon Flashback. And I'm here to talk about a show. I think I talked about it before, but just to make sure, I'm going to talk about it again, and that is Disney's Goof Troop. The reason I'm talking about it is because, well, recently Frank Heel, aka It's Frank, here on YouTube and Facebook, sent me the Goof Troop series on DVD. It's actually the first two official volumes of the series with the first 54 episodes. Now, I will say this about the Disney DVD volume releases or series volume releases of their Disney afternoon shows and other shows out there. And that is, if you're going to release the show, you should at least try to put the pilot, the very first episode or the first multi-part episodes or the movie, whatever it is, you should at least try to put it on the first volume of the DVD releases of the series. Now, I can understand maybe with Rescue Rangers, they were going by the episodes that they first aired as part of the Disney Channel preview. I can understand that. But I find it kind of ironic that when they did this with Tailspin ended up getting the pilot movie or the pilot episodes on the first volume. Same with Darkwing Duck, and I think even the same with DuckTales. Excuse me. And the same with DuckTales, I should say. But I find it kind of ironic that some of the shows you have to basically go up to the next volume, if you will, before you get the pilot. Rescue Rangers was that same way, and so is the Goof Troop Volume 2 set. Now, the DVD volumes, if you must know, excuse me, for the first 54 episodes are basically Disney Movie Club exclusives. Just like the final volume of Tailspin is a Disney Movie Club exclusive, and just like the final volume of Gargoyles is a Disney Movie Club exclusive. Now, even if it's a Disney Movie Club exclusive, you would think that at least they would say, okay, let's put the pilot episode on the first volume. But they didn't. Instead, it's on Volume 2, and I believe it's on Disc 1 of Volume 2, and it's shown as Episode 33. So, yeah, because you basically have, I believe, 3 episodes, about 9 episodes in the menu. On 9 episodes per disc, I should say. 9 or 8 episodes or something like that. I gotta look it over again. But it's basically episode 33 on the first disc of Volume 2. It and the other episodes that came after it. Came after it. So, I will say this, despite that, I think it's a very good volume. It's got some good episodes that I actually enjoy. One of the most funny episodes that I think they have is Baby Makes 3. They got some very good episodes, and I'm not denying that. They got some funny ones, and it's really good. They got another favorite of mine, Leader of the Pack, which introduced us to Debbie, and I think that was a very good episode because it basically set up another character that, had they decided to do so, had they decided to do so, could have really contributed more to the series had they revisited that character. There are some other episodes that have not been released yet, and I think they're waiting to do a third volume if they do it. So let's just pray and hope that they do a third volume down the line. But Goof Troop to me was and is one of those shows that you can love it and you could hate it, and there's a lot of people that love it. If you're a fan of Goofy, it's one of those shows that you want to check out and want to see, why it's so popular, why people love it. I mean, when you think about it, Goof Troop's popularity really took off to the point that in 1995, it got its own feature film. Now, I know you're thinking, well, that's not really the case, and you're right, it's not really the case, but there is a lot of Goof Troop resemblance in there. There's a lot of Goof Troop references in there. There's a lot of tie-ins to the show. And that is why when people look at the movie, a Goofy movie, when they look at it, yeah, they call it a Goofy movie, but they also call it, or at least they kind of do an underline of it, and they call it, through that underline or that AKA, if you will, they call it a Goofy movie, AKA, or ... Goof Troop, the movie. Because basically that's what it is. And even Nostalgia Critic said it when he did his Disney-cember. Nostalgia Critic Doug Walker, when he did his first Disney-cember, he talked about it. He even said, hey, you're doing Goof Troop the movie here. Excuse me. And that's basically what it was. And its impact is felt even to this day. When you think about it, you had a theatrical film spun off from it. You had a direct-to-video sequel of that theatrical film. And you had, basically the background. You basically had the continuity of that show used in other Disney environments. For example, you had Once Upon a Christmas, and you kind of have a little bit of a soft retcon reboot of that continuity. You have that there. Twice Upon a Christmas, the same thing, and that takes place around the continuity of an extremely goofy movie. And then you take a look at House of Mouse. You had episodes centered around Goofy and Max. One of the episodes that actually focused on Max was Max's Embarrassing Date, which was sort of I guess you could say, a sequel in a kind of a half-hour sequel or continuation or spin-off of a Goofy movie because you had Roxanne in there. And when you have Roxanne in there, you pretty much are referencing a Goofy movie. So to me, I look at Goof Troop as really having an impact on the Disney culture, if you will, on the Disney animation. When I went to Disneyland about 2 years ago for the first time, one of the characters I actually shook hands with and did a fist bump with was Max. Yeah, one of the characters. I think this was at Goofy's Dine-In, or Goofy's Kitchen, and I met Max there, which was pretty cool. And then I took a picture with him over at California Adventure. So that kind of tells you the impact of the show, because here's a character that they could have easily stored away, put away in storage, and only brought out for maybe the annual birthday celebrations in July. Here's a character that, basically officially became part of Disney's classic family. So, to me, that's the kind of impact the show has had. Now, I will say this, one of the disappointing things about the Goofy movie spin-off basically Goof Troop the movie, was it implied the fact was the fact that it implied that Pete and Peg had divorced, and that Peg had somehow got custody of Pistol, and Pete got custody of PJ. Now, of course, they don't go into too much detail or anything like that, but you get that impression. And when you get that impression, you kind of figure out, okay, maybe they do have custody, and maybe they're doing visitation rights where, like, one weekend Pistol goes with Pete and PJ goes with Peg, whatever. But to me, it has a huge impact, and it has a huge impact on that movie because basically here you have a character that obviously, let's face it, is one of the more popular Disney female characters out of the Disney Afternoon era. I mean, Peg basically, even to this day, is a popular favorite with fans. And you know why she's a popular favorite? Because she's basically more down to earth, and she can understand exactly where the young generation's coming from. And that was always what was great about her. And she was funny. I mean, you didn't know what you were going to get with her. You didn't know if you were going to get the passionate, sweet side, motherly natured side, the understanding side, or you were going to get the full-on, watch out, here comes bitch mode, excuse my language, Lord, but here comes bitch mode Peg in your face. Most importantly, Pete got bitch mode Peg sometimes, so, if not most times, I should say. But it's weird because, like, in the pilot episode, you kind of get an idea of who she is. Like when she sees Goofy for the first time, she's all chattering, glad to see him, kind of flirting with him, and suddenly she turns her attention to Pistol and starts yelling at Pistol about not playing with worms. Then she goes back to being sweet, and then as they're walking into the house, she's talking all nice and everything. And she tells Pistol, all of a sudden she tells Pistol to wash her hands. It's like you get an idea of exactly how good this character is going to be. And I give credit to the voice actress April Winchell, who's done some great voice acting in her career. She really nailed Peg. I mean, if you were to bring this show back in any form, if you were to reboot it, if you were to continue it on, years later and all that, continuing on to where, let's say, it's a new version of Goof Troop and the kids are grown up, you would have to bring April Winchell back as Peg. No doubt about it. You would have to. I mean, no one could do her better. And the same with Nancy Cartwright when it came to Pistol, Jim Cummings when it came to Pete, Bill Farmer when it came to Goofy, Rob Parsley when it came to PJ. Unfortunately, Dana Hill's not with us, but heck, James Morrison, or Jason Morrison, or James Morrison, I don't know which one it is, has proven already to be a great replacement. Has proven to be a great successor to Dana Hill when it came to Max. So put her in there, And again, the impact that Goof Troop had as well, when you would read the Disney Adventures magazine and the comics in there, I remember there was a comic or two, and you could look this up online, you can Google it. There was a few comics, Goof Troop comics, that came out after the Goofy movie and were basically tied into a Goofy movie. Because basically it did not say a Goofy movie, it said Goof Troop, and in there you had Roxanne, you had Stacy, you had Bobby. So basically, the Disney Adventures right then and there were acknowledging that a Goofy movie was indeed Goof Troop the movie. But the reason it didn't bear the Goof Troop name, according to some sources, is because of what happened with DuckTales. DuckTales failed at the box office with their movie, bombed, became a critical failure thanks to some critics, but became later on a cult hit, and a hit over in the UK at that time, but a cult hit nowadays. That because of the fact that it failed, Disney didn't want to take a chance by naming Goofy movie Goof Troop the movie. They didn't want to take that chance, so they said, okay, we're going to call it a Goofy movie, and this is the direction we're going to go with it. And they did an awesome job. I'm not going to deny it because it was a huge hit. It was a huge success. The only problem is it and an extremely goofy movie have not yet seen Blu-ray. So hopefully going into the 20th anniversary of the movie next year, it will get a Blu-ray release. Let's just hope. But anyway, getting back to Goof Troop, it's again the impact the show had was just great, and it was actually, believe it or not, the first Disney afternoon show, as far as I know. Maybe I'm wrong, but it was the first Disney afternoon show to get a primetime holiday special, which of course became a regular episode years later. Because I remember watching when it was on Toon Disney. I remember watching one day the episode and watching Goof Troop one day, and all of a sudden it was it was the Christmas episode, and it was during, like, I think June, May or something like that. And I'm thinking, they're showing the Goof Troop Christmas now? And that's when it kind of dawned on me they were starting to, they were starting to circulate it into regular position as just a regular episode, but they would air it on its own. With its unique title sequence, a title card. I mean, originally when the Goof Troop Christmas came out, it didn't have the intro. No, it actually had, just as soon as it started, it had a reef in front of a window with snow coming down, and it said Goof Troop Christmas. And then we went right into the episode. So, that's how it originally first aired. That's how Disney airs it. That's how Toon Disney aired it. Hopefully Disney XD airs it. Family Channel hopefully airs it. But yeah, that's how it was first originally aired. And but now, it's just treated like a regular episode. In fact, one of the DVDs that Frank Hill gave me was the single Disney Movie Club exclusive release, the single disc Movie Club exclusive release of Goof Troop Christmas, but it was just entitled Have Yourself a Goofy Little Christmas. It had the regular Goof Troop intro, and there you go. So to me, I don't have a problem with that, but I think it would have been better if they just went in the right direction and called it Goof Troop Christmas and just went with that. Just kept it the way it originally aired. But again, you take a look at all these other episodes like you take a look at all these other shows like Darkwing Duck, Tailspin, Bonkers, what else? 101 Dalmatians. You take a look at all these episodes. All these shows, I should say, that were basically how do I say this? You take a look at all these shows that basically aired the Christmas special episodes, or the Christmas specials as regular circulation. I mean, for a while, Disney would hold off into the Christmas season. I know they did that with Tailspin for a few years. I know they did it with Darkwing Duck, and I know they did it with Goof Troop. And even Bonkers got that treatment. So, and 101 Dalmatians got that treatment. But I guess after a while, it's like, hey, they're just regular episodes. But they just got that Christmas theme to them. So let's just make them and circulate them as regular episodes. And I'm okay with that. I'm totally okay with that. It's nothing really, really bad or anything like that. It's more along the lines of, here you have an episode that's holiday themed, and people expect to see it during the holidays, and yet you're airing it as a regular episode during the non-holiday season. I guess they take a look at these primetime shows and these other animated shows, and they see that they're doing it, and they pretty much figure, we'll do it as well. But besides that, the Goof Troop Christmas was really, really good. It's got great animation. You could tell that they treated it like a special, because the way they had the snow come down and everything, towards the climax at the end and all that, that was CGI snow. That was basically feature-length film CGI snow. It wasn't just little drawing snow. It was CGI snow. End of story. It was that's how much they treated it. They treated it like a regular special. And you could tell it with that. You could tell with the animation. You could tell with the story. And the way they ended it with Silent Night. And they even sort of made it into a musical towards the end. You know, with the reindeer dance and them, like I say, and them singing Silent Night. So that to me was an awesome deal, and something that I will never ever forget. And as far as the Goof Troop series goes, again, it was just a great show. I mean, there's nothing nothing bad anybody could really say about it. You know, and here's what's funny: you have a lot of fans out there that when they remember the show and they talk about the show and they criticize it and give it positive reviews or kind of like give you the good and the bad and the ugly about it. Some of the things they talk about that really stuck out to them are things that they felt that they can continue on in fan fiction and in webcomics, but had the series continued, they could have really explored. I mean, one of the things that fans really got intrigued by, in fact, I got intrigued by it a lot, was the relationship between Peg and Goofy. I mean, yeah, she was married to Pete and everything, and a loyal wife, and they called each other by sweet names and all that. But here's what was crazy about this. There's an episode in one of the volumes that I have where Max basically has to lie to her teacher and say, "Oh, my dad's getting married." And when Peg hears about this, she just goes over and hugs and shows affection towards Goofy and this and that. And it's like, I remember my dad basically watching this episode with me one year, and he's like, "Man, you'd think she'd want him for herself." And that's the impression you always got, because she always stuck up for Goofy. She was always defending him. And what really sealed the deal for me was the episode Goofing Up the Social Ladder, where Goofy unexpectedly, surprisingly gives out some advice to Peg, and she kisses him not once but twice. The first time is on the forehead, the second time is right on the freaking lips. And it's like you look at this and you're thinking, wait a minute, what the hey? You know, and to me, for fans like myself that would watch this, and even to this day, you would think, well, wait a minute. It's almost like Disney saying Peg would rather be with Goofy than with Pete. And believe it or not, that actually almost became a freaking reality. And here's why. There's an episode called Peg of the Jungle. Well, basically Peg and the characters, not Peg, but Peg and the other characters are setting Pete up to make him basically turn him back into the old Pete that first married Peg. The Pete that at every anniversary when they first married would go the distance to get her an anniversary gift that was so special she would adore it. They were trying to get that Pete back. And basically the way the climax came to an end was you were basically having Peg getting ready to be married to another version to basically a tribal Pete, basically a Pete lookalike in a tribe, but was actually Goofy in disguise. So almost, in a sense, in Peg of the Jungle, Goofy came close to marrying Peg. And if that's something, when Goofy tells a story about his Old West ancestor, Mopalon Goofy, at the end of that episode, you have Peg's Wild West ancestor start showing affection towards him and flirtation with him and wanting him to stay around and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, Disney, what are you trying to hint at, right? It's like, what are you trying to hint at? It's like, why don't you just come out and freaking say it? You know what I'm saying? And that's what really to me, they could have gone further with. But again, I know this was a sort of a animated sitcom for the entire family, for kids, so they didn't want to go in that direction. But still, it's like you had this opportunity to go in that direction, and you didn't. So to me, it's like you know, so to me, it's like, fans nowadays, through fan fiction, fan art, fan videos, they go in that direction. In fact, there's one fan that did I think it was a standout fan vid, used the song Standout from a Goofy movie, and he used it as a fan vid for Peg and Goofy, for Peg and Goofy. Because basically they believed, like a lot of us believe, Disney was trying to hint at the fact that Peg had affection and feelings for Goofy even though she was married. And that's the one thing I do like about that character, the fact that it showed that she had affection and feelings for Goofy, but she stayed loyal to her husband even though he put her through so much crap and drove her up the wall so many times it was not funny. So to me, it's like, Disney missed the boat on that. But, besides that, Disney went in different directions and all that. And, they did good. They gave the characters different story arcs. Or not story arcs, but give them their own episodes at times to tell a good story. Sometimes they would bring everybody together to tell the story. Sometimes it would just be 3 characters, 4 characters, 2 characters. In fact, there's an episode called Gymnasium, or whatever it is, where basically Pete has to fight for Peg against somebody that wants to steal her away. And the episode just focuses on those 3. And that's it. So to me, again, there's not much you can really say that isn't good about this show. Now, the one thing about this show that it did for 2 years. Well, actually, ABC did this for 2 years. ABC, in response to the fact that Disney was also working with CBS, ABC made a deal to air 2 Disney afternoon shows on Saturday mornings. See, CBS had 2 Disney exclusive shows for Saturday morning. CBS had Raw Tunage and Little Mermaid, and Aladdin. Well, Aladdin was also a Disney afternoon show, but that was later on. ABC said, okay, Disney, you've got those, you gave CBS 2 Saturday morning exclusives. Guess what we can give you? We will let you air different Saturday morning exclusive episodes of Goof Troop and Darkwing Duck. We air regular episodes or different episodes during the Disney afternoon weekdays. And that's what they did. So you basically had a 78 episode series instead of a 65 episode series, because even though you had 65 episodes, you had 13 that were aired on ABC. So basically that was the one thing Disney did with ABC that made Goof Troop, and even before Goof Troop, Darkwing Duck stand out to what CBS had. The fact that not only could you watch Darkwing Duck and Goof Troop during the weekdays, you can also watch exclusive Saturday morning episodes on ABC. And that was pretty cool. But overall, I don't think there's really much else you could say about Goof Troop other than it was a good show. It has basically created a huge legacy that is continued on to this day and felt to this day in other Disney properties. It spun off into its own movie. It spun off a sequel to that movie. It had connections through continuity with other Disney projects like the Christmas movies and whatnot, House of Mouse, you name it. And overall, it was just a good show. And I really hope someday we not only get the final volumes of Goof Troop on DVD, but we also probably get a revitalization of Goof Troop on television, whether as a continuation of the original series or something. And hopefully maybe we might get a comic book series out of it again, courtesy of Marvel Comics and Disney. I mean, if Boom Studios can do comic book versions of Darkwing Duck, DuckTales, and Rescue Rangers, and Gargoyles, they can sure as heck do it with Goof Troop. And believe me, with comic books, you can go in all directions with them. You can explore different territories. You could go in areas that normally you cannot go in with an animated show. And I believe that if they do a Goof Troop comic, even for 8 issues, and you could set it within that same timeline, you could set it years later, you could set it in the same continuity, but like I say, years later, or during that timeline of the show, or whatever. And maybe you can explore why you don't, and maybe, let's say you do a comic book and you want to set it in the same continuity, but it's years later. Maybe you finally find out why Peg and Pete are no longer together. Maybe you find out what's going on here. Maybe you find out what's going on there. And just see what happens. Because if Darkwing Duck, DuckTales, and Rescue Rangers can be huge hits with the masses, thanks to Boom Studios, you can only imagine what Disney and Marvel Comics can do if they go in the same direction. So, to me, I really hope that happens. But overall, just a great series. I highly recommend you guys check it out. You could probably find it on YouTube. You could probably find it on YouTube. If not, go to Disney Movie Club. You can get the volumes. They're not that much. And if not, if you don't want to do that, of course, there are the torrents. Look them up there. So that's all I'm going to say on Goof Troop. Thank you for listening to this audio edition of the Cartoon Flashback.